English immigrant, became one of the most renowned writers in American history. He had crossed the ocean with little more than a letter of recommendation from Ben Franklin. However, he soon started writing for the Pennsylvania Magazine in Philadelphia, where he became intimately familiar with the increasingly tenuous situation of the American colonies. The British, in 1775, had closed the port of Boston. They had declared the colonies an open rebellion and had fired upon their own people. That summer, Congress wrote a petition requesting relief, which was summarily rejected by King George III. The die was cast. It was then that this writer, Thomas Paine, published a timely pamphlet on January 9, 1776, entitled Common Sense. In the following pages, I offer nothing more than simple facts, plain arguments, and common sense. I ask only one thing from the reader, that he will divest himself of prejudice and prepossession, and permit his reason and his feelings to determine for themselves, that he will put on the true character of a man, and generously enlarge his views beyond this present day.
How does that sound?
The authority of Great Britain over this continent is a form of government which sooner or later must have an end, and a serious mind can draw no true pleasure by looking forward, under the painful and firm conviction that what he calls the present Constitution is merely temporary. As parents, we can have no joy knowing that this government is not sufficiently lasting to ensure anything which he may bequeath to posterity. In order to discover the line of our duty rightly, we should take our children in our hands and fix our station a few years farther into life. That forward-looking perspective will reveal a prospect which present fears and prejudices currently conceal from our sight. Moreover, it is the good fortune of many to live distant from the scene of present sorrow. The evil is not sufficiently brought to their doors to make them feel the precariousness with which all American property is possessed. But let our imaginations transport us a few moments to Boston. That seat of wretchedness will teach us wisdom and instruct us forever to renounce a power in whom we can have no trust. The inhabitants of that unfortunate city, who but a few months ago were in ease and affluence, have now no other alternative than to stay and starve or turn out to beg. In their present condition, they are prisoners without the hope of redemption. This is not inflaming or exaggerating matters, but trying them by those feelings and affections which nature justifies.
Pay attention, we're going to have a test after this.
Every quiet method for peace hath been ineffectual. Our prayers have been rejected with disdain, and only tended to convince us that nothing flatters vanity or confirms obstinacy in kings more than repeated petitioning, and nothing hath contributed more than that very measure to make the kings of Europe absolute. Wherefore, since nothing but blows will do, for God's sake let us come to a final separation, and not leave the next generation to be cutting throats under the violated, unmeaning names of parent and child. Ye that tell us of harmony and reconciliation, can ye restore to us the time that is past? Can ye give to prostitution its former innocence? Neither can ye reconcile Britain and America. There are injuries which nature cannot forgive. She would cease to be nature if she did. As well can the lover forgive the ravisher of his mistress as the continent forgive the murders of Britain. The Almighty hath implanted in us these unextinguishable feelings for good and wise purposes. They are the guardians of his image in our hearts. The robber and the murderer would often escape unpunished did not the injuries which our tempers sustain provoke us into justice. Everything that is right or natural pleads for separation. The blood of the slain, the weeping voice of nature herself cries, "'Tis time to part."
Miguel Keith,
spent his junior high and high school years hearing of the war in Vietnam. Year after year, the war dragged on. Nevertheless, at the young age of 17, he enlisted in the Marine Corps in January 1969. 10 months later, his unit was ordered to Quang Ngai province in Vietnam to join the more than 500,000 troops already in country. In the early morning of May 8, 1970, his platoon's position was attacked by an overwhelming enemy force. The fighting was intense, and Lance Corporal Keith was seriously wounded. Despite his wounds, he continued his duty of surveying the fire-swept terrain to check the security of vital defensive positions. Making his rounds continually exposed him to enemy fire in view. Yet he never shrank from engaging the enemy in this exposed condition. At one point in the battle, 5 enemy soldiers approached the command post. Lance Corporal Keith rushed forward, firing as he advanced, killing 3 of the attackers and dispersing the remaining 2. Then, a grenade detonated near Lance Corporal Keith, knocking him to the ground and inflicting further wounds. Fighting pain and weakness from loss of blood, he again braved the concentrated fire to charge a group of 25 of the enemy who were massing to attack. The vigor of his assault and his well-placed fire eliminated 4 of the enemy, while the remaining fled to cover. During this valiant effort, Lance Corporal Keith was mortally wounded. At the age of 19, he died a heroic death. And his platoon succeeded that day against overwhelming numbers. By his courage and inspiring performance in the face of overwhelming odds, Lance Corporal Miguel Keith upheld the finest traditions of the Marine Corps and the U.S. Naval Service. 58,000. 58,000. Who was Lance Corporal Miguel Keith? Was he a hero? Maybe you would say that. Was he a man of virtue? Possibly. Did he love his country? Yes, he did. He was one of the 58,000 who proved their love on the far shores of Vietnam. Think about that. 58,000. Hillsdale College's football stadium, Muddy Waters Memorial Football Stadium, holds 8,000 in its seats. We could fill that stadium not once, not twice, but 7 times over. What a sacrifice. Another of those 58,000 who gave his all is Lance Corporal Richard Allen. Listen to the words of his Medal of Honor citation. For conspicuous gallantry at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, while serving as an assistant team leader with Company E in connection with combat operations against an armed enemy. While conducting a patrol during the early morning hours, Lance Corporal Anderson's reconnaissance team came under a heavy volume of automatic weapons and machine gun fire from a numerically superior and well-concealed enemy force. Although painfully wounded in both his legs and knocked to the ground during the initial moments of the fierce firefight, Lance Corporal Anderson maintained his position and continued to deliver suppressive fire in an attempt to repulse the attackers. Moments later, he was wounded a second time by an enemy soldier who had approached to within 8 feet of the enemy of the team's position. Undaunted, he continued to pour a relentless stream of fire at the assaulting unit, even while a companion treated his wounded legs. observing an enemy grenade land between himself and that other Marine, Lance Corporal Anderson immediately rolled over and covered the lethal weapon with his body, absorbing the full effects of its detonation. By his indomitable courage, inspiring initiative, and selfless devotion to duty, Lance Corporal Anderson was instrumental in saving several Marines from serious injury and death. His actions were in keeping with the highest traditions of the Marine Corps and the U.S. Naval Service. He gallantly gave his life in the service of his country. Many say that we lost these men, these brave 58,000. But is that true? Have we lost them? Let us not forget that noble sacrifice is one of the highest virtues of man. When the Creator himself came to earth in bodily form, what was the greatest thing that he did? What was his crowning achievement? Listen to the words of the prophet Isaiah. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. When we think of greatness, we tend to think of achievement. We tend to think of power and self-determination, the self-made man. But what does the Creator say? The one who made this whole place, what does he say is greatness? Hear the words of Jesus instructing his disciples 2,000 years ago. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So what about the 58,000? We did not lose them. They gave themselves to their country and to their fellow man, to their brother, to the left and to the right. They are not lost. They have followed in the footsteps of the Creator, who came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. They have not lost. No, they have gained. Yes. Yes, we mourn the absence of our loved ones. We mourn the young life cut short. This world is full of trouble. Yes, we mourn. But we also rejoice. We rejoice that 58,000 men were willing to answer the call when their country needed them. That 58,000 were resolved to stand by their brother's side through thick and thin. That 58,000 gave their lives that others might go free. I'd like to conclude today with the words of the former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. He said this: "You and your fellow veterans should feel quite proud. You may not have accomplished your objectives in Vietnam, but you accomplished your objectives in Southeast Asia. Because the rest of us, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, were poised for a communist juggernaut, and you gave them time. Your sacrifice gave them the time to develop beyond the reach of the communists." That is the heritage of our brave men in uniform. May we honor their sacrifice. You have before you a little song sheet. I'll take one of those too. We could conclude today, finish up, looking at the words of America the Beautiful. Look at that second verse. This is written long before anyone ever heard of Vietnam. But listen to these words. "O beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine." O beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and round thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. O beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. O beautiful for patriot dream, that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and round thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. May God bless the United States of America.
Amen. Amen.